It is very easy to get anything you want on your smartphone, any image, video. You can buy goods, services, any piece of information you're looking for, it's all there. But a lot of the time, I would say most of the time, it is transactional. It is not a fulfilling experience. The fun, rewarding, fulfilling things, they are mostly to be found somewhere out there in the real world. Now, retailers and brands, they know this, and they know there are people who really would benefit from coming out into their physical spaces. But oftentimes, those people must be enticed. To find out more about creating real-world experiences, we're talking with Zack Teachout and Mayer with Hovercraft. Now, Hovercraft creates experiences for clients like Arc'teryx, H&M, Netflix, Nike, Taco Bell, just to name a few. And they design retail spaces, brand experiences, and more. And I'm going to ask them, what does it take to get people away from their screens and into the real world? You're listening to Where We Buy. It's the show where we talk with retail experts and we visit the places where we buy. My name is James Cook. I research retail and real estate for JLL. Today we're being joined by two gentlemen from Hovercraft, Zack Teachout and Mayer. Welcome, Zack and Austin.
Thank you.
Good morning, James.
Good to be here.
Excellent. Okay. So let's get into it. We're talking about experiences, but before we get into the hows and the whys of physical experiences, let's describe Hovercraft. Zack, maybe this one's for you.
At our core, we're a creative first design practice. We flow between studio, which is usually smaller, more boutique, and agency, where we kind of get into strategy and do some of the bigger things. So we're a bit of a hybrid. Actually began a little more traditional in the work type, so more campaign, animation, websites, things like that. Were kind of prevalent in the early years. Over time, we started to sort of just gravitate towards experiential work at large, primarily retail. And then last number of, 3-4 years, kind of temporary experience at all different scales has really become like probably the bread and butter of what we do. Even in the kind of temporary experience, retail or generally selling something is the end game. Although we are, I think as a studio, we're unique in that we're like kind of at times anti-marketing and anti-sales. And it is truly trying to get people in for an experience.
What is, if you were to give one example of something you've created that really represented the firm, what would you tell people about?
Probably a project from last year for Coinbase, called Coinbase Arena. Where it represents us well is that we are extremely multidisciplinary. So as a design practice, we have graphic designers, spatial/retail designers, creative technologists, animators, developers, production team, even illustration in-house. So we've got such a kind of pirate ship of people, and the projects that allow all those pirates to get on board and produce something are definitely the ones that we're kind of most excited by, and the projects that definitely represent sort of like our capability at large. So that project in a nutshell was a brand experience during NBA All-Star. We were ultimately charged with taking a brand that sort of lives digitally as a crypto focus and then bringing them into the world of basketball. Title sponsor for the NBA, maybe a 3-year run of putting a bunch of effort into focusing on sport. These kind of big All-Star moments are like the culmination of kind of a lot. We're ultimately translating their brand and their kind of product attributes or a certain marketing agenda into a real experience. So in this case, talking about kind of this, we've done speed stories, like how fast kind of crypto moves around the world. How do we build a game or an experience around basketball that kind of moves at high speed and represents that and gives you gameplay, and it sort of disassociates visitors, users from maybe the product, but ultimately the feeling and the emotion that comes with it is what we're trying to pull out and do that through, the guise of sport.
There was a fairly complex technical product that Coinbase was trying to explain. And it was it wasn't the main Coinbase app. It was this other one called Coinbase Wallet, which a lot of people didn't know about. But rather than explain, here's what a token is, here's how you onboard, here's how you do this very technical process, even though they made it really, really easy and really wonderful as a digital product. Our whole goal for that thing was to just shroud it or turn it into something that felt familiar but unexpected at the same time. So it was kind of an amusement park ride. You stood in line, you onboarded to the app, you barely thought about it. You got a cool digital collectible, which you could interact with. Then you got to play basketball with this huge 18,000 pound robot that had a former life welding car parts together. And then as you played, it helped you score more points. That was the whole analogy. Coinbase makes crypto easier, so Coinbase is now making basketball easier. And so we turned that into a really fun game that all ages could do. And then the more points you scored, that unlocked different free merchandise that you could go get. So a really cool hoodie, a tote bag, hats, there was a bunch of other stuff. But there were kind of a couple things out of that were my favorite part of this whole weekend. People, like random people with their families, asked, how long has this been touring? When can I see this again? And we had to explain that this was a one-off that existed for 4 days only and then went away forever. They couldn't believe it. They thought this was like a touring act that, had been designed. And so I think that level of intention and, Disney light amusement park style end-to-end experience is where that thing really shined. And then, I guess to your original question, James, like what did we do on it or what represents Hovercraft? That one was kind of wild because how the space was designed, how the digital touch points were designed, how we interface seamlessly with Coinbase's tech, how we designed a game around a robot, how we made it clear where you were moving, how you could get merchandise that made other competing booths in NBA crossover want to wear the arena merch. All that was us. And so kind of building a whole new world
and even
for
beyond,
that weekend was it.
Oh, even in addition, I think where we get pretty unique is that like we spin up a temporary kind of activation brand, campaign. So identity for Coinbase Arena, all the graphic treatments, all the motion work, 2D, 3D, all the UX, UI, like every aspect of this thing, like it is, prior to that weekend, none of that existed. So, we're designing merch, we're doing kind of all of it and then seeing it through production. So we truly are like crafting the meal, every single piece of it. We are putting in every ingredient.
It's like the basketball net itself is a robot. Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
And tell what's that kind of like? What's the game dynamic like?
Yeah, essentially we use a presenter arm, a robotic arm that you might paint a car with or move like a car chassis. Very big in your face piece of hardware, and then we ultimately painted it white and made it less scary. But on the armature, we use an LED screen as the backboard, and then a variety of sensors in and around, so we can tell if you make a shot, miss a shot. It's all automated. There's a back-end system running all this that we developed. And ultimately with the LED backboard, say you make a shot, we turn it into a character and sort of gave it some emotion in and of itself. So the better you're doing, the more excited the backboard was getting. And it was like giving you props, taunting you, kind of keeping you engaged. So it was truly like nothing anyone had ever really imagined before. We've all played plenty of pickup basketball or more serious basketball, but adding that layer of kind of experience to just something that's so familiar to everybody made it very transformative and different. And then ultimately it was all kind of in like a big kind of round arena space, this thing at the center, you'd take your first shot. Once you made your first shot, then it would kick into, I think we call it Coinbase mode, and the robotic arm would swing around like 90 degrees. You'd run to a different spot, and then you'd start playing against a shot clock. So the more baskets you were making, the robot would respond and start moving, go higher. The more you make in a row, the higher it gets, the further away it gets. And then, giant LED curved wall behind all of this with essentially the gameplay dynamics. So it was all reactive in real time to your play. And then, of course, we keep a leaderboard to get everybody competitive, which is always a hit. But yeah, I think the piece that was happening in the background, and Austin alluded to it earlier, that tying it back to Coinbase very intentionally, is that when you sign up to do the experience, you either have their digital product or you download it, put in a little bit of information, and then mint a digital collectible. So that would live in the app. And then while you were playing, that would get altered and based on your score. So you're, ultimately making like a custom one-off thing, not, unbeknownst to you while you're playing. So your score then translate back to that, and then that would also unlock prizing. So you're kind of giving, there's a rewards aspect to it. So like, play the game, get something cool. It's on us to make sure we make cool enough merch that people want it, or we get a bunch of signed NBA jerseys. Coinbase is good at that, so that entices kids. But I think beyond that, I think where the experience, I think was like a real success is that I think that was all like a perk, getting something at the end. That was not the motivation. I mean, you see this thing in real life. It is like mesmerizing, and pretty exciting to watch. So it was like drawing, constant crowd, people trying to play it again and again. Even NBA players would come through, play it, and then like want to go again, try to beat either the ultimate leaderboard or there was a 11-year-old boy who took down I think all the players at one point. He was the top of the leaderboard over.
Yeah, he's beating NBA All-Stars, and they like saw that and they're like, "Hey, can I play this again? I want to be that child." And
Yeah,
like, that was amazing.
lower on the list. So I think that it's familiar experience. I think that it's end of the day, it's something we can all relate to. Or sport is really connective. We do a lot in sport, and like translating brands and their products or just their kind of brand ethos into a place that maybe isn't like a natural fit to take a technology brand and throw it in the middle of a basketball game.
So what I'm hearing is you're using technology, but it's kind of behind the scenes a little bit to create a fun experience. It's a game that people know, but it's a new twist on that. Yep. What are there other like kind of like core elements that you think draw people in?
I mean, the sheer spectacle of it was huge. You know, there was like a whole jumbotron that kind of broadcast what was happening. There was recaps, there was merchandise, so it traveled around the arena when people wore it. So I think, this one had it all, and it's kind of difficult to explain. Like, it had and this stuff.
The technology piece, I think that for a number of years we were very active in a specific Nike store, House of Innovation in New York. So kind of from launch of that for handful of years, we were month over month doing some immersive experience to launch a product or brand campaign, and that was all very like kind of intentionally technology forward. So like it felt very tech. There's it was very progressive always, and that I think a bit pigeonholed us for a while, where people thought like the only way we worked was like slam tech in your face and make something that was crazy spectacle. But then we look at some of our like kind of maybe studio wide favorite projects, and those are the ones that there's a technology component, but like you would you don't really feel it. You get the benefits of it. Think about like a customization experience where our brief is an interesting one. I got a phone call one afternoon about a project. The brief was, hey, we have all this stuff going on in Chicago. We would like to invite a bunch of athletes and influencers to customize a pair of Air Force Ones. It's a Nike project. And we're thinking beautiful lounge, invite them in, kind of great service, give them an iPad, let them customize a shoe, and then we'll produce a couple, give them one, and then we'll auction one off for Boys and Girls Club. It's like we have a lot of trust with client partners, so we can push back on some of the briefs at times and say, are you sure? I felt like that, on that specific phone call. I was in my truck, like I think driving home from the studio, and immediately I was like, this seems like a bad idea. We do not want to invite all these top tier, high profile people to sit on a couch and mess around an iPad. Like, you can do that at home. You can do that on the train, in the back of a cab, wherever. So quickly went to, can't we make this like a physical experience where it's more magic? It feels more magic. You're hands-on things, and customizing in a way that like has never kind of been done. There was a long-standing store now closed, 21 Mercer, and there was a component to sort of that program that was footwear customization. So you could, in New York, get an appointment, go in, design a one-off shoe. And it was, very much like design studio. You walk in, there's materials everywhere. There's kind of all the things you could choose from. You do that with a Nike designer, and then they would hand render or like Photoshop render your final shoe over the next few days, send that to you, and you'd approve it or make a change. Pretty antiquated, like when you're thinking about spending $1,000, $1,500 on a pair of shoes, but an experience that you're not getting anywhere else, or you extremely premium and one-on-one. So we looked at that, quickly referenced that sort of that experience, said, what if we could take and blend the two and bring this kind of Nike by You website to life in a way. So we ultimately got a bunch of swatches, did some R&D, using RFID technology. The thought was we could RFID tag all the swatches, and then you could like have a table that you work on, you tap those swatches. So if, whatever your materials, colors, and then real time in a screen kind of built, we ultimately built into the wall, just seeing real time render output, high fidelity of the shoe that you were designing. So, your hands are getting dirty, you're feeling the materials, working with a designer one-on-one, but everything, technology is allowing you to see your design decisions like immediately. And also giving you like a very nice tactile, experience that, we taking cues even from like a mobile device where we put haptics in the table. We had a circular kind of glass area that you could tap a swatch. So let's say you want black patent leather, and you tap that, and then the whole thing, the table would have like a subtle vibration to it to sort of know that like, it was reading and responding to you. And ultimately that, became a bit of a magical kind of moment, similar to, the mesmerizing robot, where you're able just to work and think and design at a pace and like see the outputs instantaneously, and like really feel like a footwear designer, and be able to wrap your head around it. It's very difficult to, like, if you don't do it all the time, take a shoe, look at a blank shoe, pick a bunch of swatches and be like, this is going to look good. So it gives you a true iterative creative process. And then, I think where that one, like behind the scenes, like technology didn't really exist. It felt, we intentionally made the space very kind of subdued and simple, kind of more plain language. So Apple plywood, it was all, tables and furniture were all like CNC cut and would snap together so we could like pack it up after and bring it somewhere else. So it had like a a no technology feel to it. But then as you go through the experience, you do it. We were on the back end recording your final design decisions and kicking those straight to a cut sheet to then be able to go to the factory to get made. So it was, truly like end-to-end process was considered, but, as a user, it's just a playful experience that you get to make something.
Yeah, you're holding a shoe and you're talking to a designer and you're like trading swatches, and it's very natural.
Some of our work over the recent, more recent, there's been, we still do a lot of technology forward things, but more in your face, but then we love to find ways to sort of like put that in the background. And it's an enabler, but, it is not like the conversation.
Talking about one of the examples I saw that you guys worked on that I don't think has a big technology component to it is the Taco Bell Bad Birdie Invitational, which I found really compelling. How did that come about? Tell folks about that.
The real origin story, shout out Rebecca Parker. Kind of known Rebecca for a long time. She's on the client side. Ended up at Taco Bell to kind of steer all creative, and activation experience was something that, they've actually done. I feel like they've done a fantastic job. They have such a playful, fun brand. When they do things, historically, they're very cool and unexpected, and they get some leniency. But this project, came up, partnership, first annual golf tournament with Bad Birdie. So you have like cool, youthful apparel kind of focused brand, and then Taco Bell. Bring that together. It was really like, how do you just pump a bunch of different energy into golf? Golf is like a very, kind of become more and more popular over the last number of years, and there's a lot more kind of youthful energy happening. Got the initial brief, and then, do a site visit, go walk the course, figure out.
Where was it held?
It was in Dana Point, just kind of south of LA. Taco Bell was pulling, a bunch of golfers together for this. And then, we were ultimately like tasked with how do you bring the brand, both brands to life, kind of more of a Taco Bell wrapper, but really celebrating that collaboration, bring some energy, lighter footprint, no technology. You have to be very mindful working on a golf course. As you can imagine, the groundskeeper is probably going to be breathing down your neck at all turns when you're trying to build things. So we sort of had like a more centralized kind of player hub, lounge area, music, just again, bring different energy to the game, and like something that represented both brands well. And then ultimately just like made that the backdrop for sports. And yeah, it was a well received. It led, we've done a few other Taco Bell projects, with that group since then.
Zach, would you say our activation was the Doritos Locos Taco of golf course brand partnerships?
Very much.
Yeah, there we go.
But
so what is, like, for folks that haven't seen the video or weren't there, what would you describe about it that was unique, that really stood out?
You're in like a natural setting, right? Mm-hmm. Green, lush golf course. We come crashing in with vibrant color, lots of gradients, sort of a louder presence. And I think we didn't, we had some locker rooms, we designed trophies, all the tee boxes were branded, coming in there with just like a different, a new level of energy and kind of visual language, was huge for that. And then, kind of not over, I think that one, budget always comes into play in projects. So it's like we had a lot of real estate to cover. So it was like, how do you build a couple focal moments, but still make the entire thing feel connected? So it's not like, there's one cool space over here that's branded, and then otherwise it's a golf course. I think so. That's where it was just like, all the details and things like, the flag markers at the holes. Again, like branding, kind of tee boxes, and then creating like, a backdrop for both for Bad Birdie to launch product and Taco Bell to sort of launch this bigger community initiative.
I think when you look at Hovercraft work, in my opinion, we do like three things. Brand narrative storytelling is one pillar. built environment, and then a technology through layer. And I think that Taco Bell project has the first two kind of maxed out: brand narrative storytelling and kind of world building that didn't really exist, but feels very intentional. Like Zach, you're talking about every single touch point. If you're a player on the course, this is what you would want to see, sort of thing. And then, executed in the built environment and just considered and intentional and kind of bespoke. There's a lot of custom stuff that got made for that thing.
We see in our industry, there's a lot of competitor shops that like are known for technology, and it's like they generally don't do projects where they can't slam a bunch of tech into it. And for us, it's a part of the conversation up front. If there's, either appetite or opportunity or need, more need based, but something where, for being such a technology forward studio, we are also like tech adverse when, I think,
the worst thing we could have done is if you showed up and like we forced you to like experience the golf course through your phone or something. That's just that would have been a miss.
But,
so we didn't do that. That was not there.
When you're creating a temporary experience, what kind of how do you judge the success? Obviously the client feels happy, like this is awesome. But do they say, well, hey, what kind of, is it social posts? I mean, what are they looking at?
We have, this is very elusive. We talk about this a lot. So KPIs of like how you track stuff is pretty loose. I think we would go by, hey, what was our throughput? How many people arrived? How many people, touch points we can track, if that is a digital component or if that's more physical accounting. So I think that's like a good top line. But I think more than that, is this idea of this like very subjective, was it cool? Did it move the needle? Are people talking about this? And the most pointed version of that, again, at Coinbase Arena, we had one NBA All-Star come up to us and said, hey, can I buy this from you and put it in my backyard? So I'm going to put that one as off the charts success, to have like somebody who's seen it all, been around the world, been in the league for a really long time, want to purchase the thing we made with the intention that it wasn't permanent. And, we hooked them up with our partner studio who did the robotics part. And like, they were trying to figure it out for a minute and it almost happened. NBA robotics isn't on every project. So like, how do we track that? How do we, get resonance when it is so fuzzy? In a lot of ways, I don't know, Zach, how you feel about this. I think about this as like, you're in a museum looking at art, everybody's kind of getting something different out of it.
Yeah.
And so I think that's kind of a lovely byproduct of what we're doing, is there's different ways to engage with it. Whether, you're at Taco Bell and you're enjoying the golf course and it's supported by the Taco Bell infrastructure, there isn't just one way to experience that. I think the same way on Arena, where you had the game, you had the merch, you had all these different touch points.
Something's
for
going
people to get into.
So of all of the projects that you've worked on, and maybe you both have different answers for this, what was one that was really challenging? Like, what was one that was really tough to pull off?
All of them?
All of them, because
they're all different. Like
they're all radically different. People come to us with a date on the calendar. They come to us with like a half-baked idea, or they come to us with an idea that we completely change. So I think the term that gets thrown around a lot is like Hovercraft rodeo, of like knowing how to like weave your way through a fuzzy client ask or maybe a difficult thing. I think we're pretty fortunate. A lot of people come to us to co-build a brief because they don't really know what they're asking for. Or
there's a lot of like, they've got a time and a place. So, hey, we need to show up here.
Yeah.
But they product or a brand story, but like, what do we do?
Even how we define Hovercraft, like back at the start, it's kind of hard because we combine all these fields and it is different every time. So I think the most challenging projects are, our clients are lovely. They let us do a lot of crazy stuff. I think it just kind of comes down to time and budget. Like, how much can we squeeze out of it, especially in like a NBA All-Star time frame where everybody's trying to do everything. in one city. So to thread the needle and have it land is just like, do we have enough time? We're going to crunch until we get it there.
And maybe, and I don't know if I should say this out loud in the world, but our most challenging projects tend to be the ones with almost a longer timeline, which seems, I mean, in the world you come from, James, like time is everything. Like, we do workplace design projects. Those are a couple year lead times, full scale architecture. But it's taken us a while to like adapt to that, which like seems crazy because everyone wants more time to kind of sweat the craft and do the thinking and the design. So much of our work is compressed into like wild time, quick turn, big ask. But it forces, we've become very good at that. You're forced to make decisions, think quickly, lean on intuition, and not kind of get bogged down in too much process or too much, overthinking. So it's in a weird way, I always feel like, the fast sprint projects are the ones like we excel, and those go like they have to go well. Like there's no room for error, no room for sort of, moving the target or rethinking kind of concept. You commit to something and then just like craft the heck out of it. On the flip side, if you give us 2 years, more like my 9-year-old, gonna just flounder and be lost.
Yeah, what do you do? What do you do with your hands for that amount of time? I don't know.
Um,
This is all like type 2 fun. Like while you're doing it, it's like, wow, this is really hard and this sucks. And then you like look back at it and you're like, oh, that wasn't that bad.
Well,
I can rationalize.
I was going to ask you
May.
what was the most fun project to work on, but maybe it's the same thing.
I think it's the same thing. I mean, Arena for me, I think, I don't know. Arc'teryx was very cool. I mean, we just did one a couple weeks ago that was very hard because of we were basically made like a one-off live set. We took over an abandoned nightclub in Las Vegas and turned it into an interactive LED basketball court.
Can you talk more about that one?
Yeah.
Like who was the client and what was it you created?
So it was, ultimately for BetMGM.
Yep.
And then it was with their agency and another studio that kind of working on content. Their agency, High Dive, kind of does all their big marketing work. So through our buddy Mitch, who was involved in the project, called us and said, "Hey, we've got this potential basketball experience. We know the ins and outs.
Ball.
Basketball. We've done like things around NBA All-Star for like a decade running. So ultimately, BetMGM had a campaign running, kind of this 1v1 story with the Cavender twins, and they wanted to basically during March Madness Final Four weekend, bring a basketball experience to life in some way. We had some like kind of wild, outlandish ideas to begin, and then it came down to like how we need to find a location for this thing to live at. Luckily, the BetMGM team has a key that unlocks a lot of different doors, and we found this defunct abandoned nightclub in one of the resorts, and quickly said, "Oh, what if we like spun this into something way unexpected? Like you enter the nightclub, dance floor's basketball court, and we can run programming, have different athletes, celebrity kind of influencer folks from that world, dunk contests, do all these things, but hold it within, a much different, unexpected, more intimate setting than like an arena." So we were able to fit a half court basically on the dance floor, and kind of built a very immersive LED environment, hoop, built a show controller and application where The court would be reactive and all these different gameplay. So if there's drills or a dunk contest, like you leave the floor, you land, you dunk, like the whole thing responds visually and with audio as well. And yeah, I mean that was like a fairly fast moving project. A lot of parts. I think for us, we've done a lot of these like unproven weird projects, so we're very comfortable in the unknown.
Well, so Zach, on that point, like I think maybe a challenge on that one, which is fine, ultimately because it showed up really well. But I think we work best when there's an analogous kind of creative unit on the client side. So like Nike, there's like a me we're talking to. There's another creative director that might not have the executional chops to like do what we're doing, but they generally know like, okay, here's how the brand needs to show up in this way. In this particular mix, because there was like client and agency, and then us, there was just like a lot of voices who hadn't really done something like this in physical live experience setting. So there was like a education and execution simultaneously that need to happen, which is why we get hired and part of the gig, but particularly challenging when you need to move at a super fast pace and like do it in a month. And that, you add in the layers of like different creative director voices having different opinions on who this is for and where it needs to show up, and all that's part of it. Like it makes the idea better, but we're like, we got to do this thing. We got to make this call. Let's go. And having to build it, fly it, write the instruction manual all at once is a lot, but it was really cool. Showed up well.
Okay, so we're running out of time, but I want to end with the question that I started with in my introduction, which is, what does it take to get people away from their screens, out of their homes, and come visit a physical installation somewhere? What do you, either of you, both of you, what are the key elements that draws people in, do you think?
Imagination. Like, people want to be inspired. They want to be informed. They want to learn something. They ultimately want to be fascinated.
Intention behind it, like how are you not just slapping like a brand logo on something and trying to have it exist out there? I think every project we're working on is different, so it's a little hard to apply a formula to stuff. But one thing I think about often are kind of two principles. What is going to be a magnet to like pull people in? So in the case of like Taco Bell, like brand color, the gradient, like the big, fun inflatable aspect of it. And then what is like the rabbit hole, like what's going to keep you there? In that case, golf, and it was, for an invitational. But even on like a temp structure or a first time user experience where you need to explain kind of like a fairly complex thing, but make it simple. So people aren't like, I don't want to download anything or do that. Like, how do those work together? How do you attract people with a giant robot that is smiling at you or convincing you to play more basketball? And then how do you get them to stay there by, if you do this, you get this cool merch or have this cool brand experience, and you just so happen to install the Coinbase app.
Zack and Austin with Hovercraft, thank you so much for joining me today. This has been a fascinating conversation.
Yeah, thank you.
And if you like this podcast, do me a favor, go into the app that you're listening to and give us a rating. Even better, you can give us a little review. Write something you like about the show. Maybe something you didn't like. That's fine. Whatever you want to do is good with me. You can subscribe to Where We Buy on the iPhone podcast app. We're on Spotify. Pretty much wherever you get your podcasts, you can find Where We Buy. And we are on the web at wherewebuy.show. If you've got a specific question about retail, shopping centers, or retail real estate, feel free to connect and message with me on LinkedIn. Just search for James Cook, JLL. And our theme music is Run in the Night by the Good Lords under Creative Commons license. All right, that's a wrap.